Start with Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek. Summary and Analysis by Brevreds. Introduction. Imagine a world where every decision, every action, and every product is driven by a clear sense of purpose. A world where people don't just buy what you do, but buy into why you do it. This is the central idea of Start with Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek. It's a book that explores a fundamental truth. The most successful leaders and organizations don't focus merely on what they do or how they do it. They start with a deeper reason, a purpose that inspires their actions and connects with people on a personal level. Think about the companies that have truly changed the world: Apple, Martin Luther King Jr., Civil Rights Movement, or even the Wright brothers, who made the dream of flight a reality. These examples don't just represent technological breakthroughs or well-crafted strategies. They show the power of a vision that resonates deeply with people. They offer something far more compelling than a product or a service. They offer a belief that others want to share in. But Start with Why is not just about understanding the success of famous leaders. It's a guide for everyone. Whether you're a teacher trying to inspire students, an entrepreneur building a startup, or a parent raising a family, knowing your why can transform how you lead and connect with others. It's about more than just achieving goals. It's about finding a reason that gets you out of bed in the morning, that makes others want to join you on your journey. In the pages that follow, we'll dive into the stories and ideas that make this approach so powerful. We'll explore the journeys of iconic figures like Steve Jobs, Martin Luther King Jr., and the Wright brothers, unpacking how their sense of purpose allowed them to overcome challenges and leave a lasting impact on the world. And we'll break down the practical steps you can take to find your own why, guiding you to lead with purpose, inspire others, and make a difference, no matter how big or small your goals might be. So, why do some people and companies inspire, while others struggle to find traction? It all starts with asking the right question: why do you do what you do? Let's dive in and find out how answering this question can change everything. The story of Harley-Davidson, creating a tribe. In the early 1980s, Harley-Davidson, the iconic American motorcycle company, was facing an existential crisis. The company, which once symbolized American freedom and rebellion, was now in a desperate fight for survival. Japanese motorcycle manufacturers like Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki had entered the market with bikes that were not only more reliable but also significantly cheaper. The Japanese motorcycles were sleek, efficient, and low maintenance, appealing to a new generation of riders. Meanwhile, Harley-Davidson's heavy, rumbling machines seemed outdated in comparison. The Japanese competitors' success quickly eroded Harley-Davidson's market share. The American brand was plagued with mechanical problems, like leaking engines and clunky transmissions, and it struggled to meet new standards for emissions and fuel efficiency. Harley-Davidson bikes were still big, loud, and heavy, but now they were also expensive to maintain. The company's balance sheet looked just as grim as its reputation, with mounting debts and a looming threat of bankruptcy. By 1981, Harley-Davidson's market share in the U.S. had dropped from nearly 80% to under 15%. To make matters worse, public perception of the brand had shifted. Bikers were no longer seen as rugged, adventurous individualists, but were often stereotyped as outlaws, disconnected from mainstream society. Many of the company's loyal riders continued to cherish their Harleys, but younger customers were opting for the cheaper, more practical options from Honda or Yamaha. The brand that once represented the spirit of the open road now seemed stuck in the past. Desperate for a turnaround, Harley-Davidson's board turned to Von Beals, a tough-minded executive who became CEO in 1981, and Richard Tierlink, who later joined as COO. Together, they led a management buyout of the company from its parent corporation, AMF, hoping to restore the brand's glory. Beals and Tierlink recognized that they couldn't compete with the Japanese manufacturers on price or performance. They needed a different approach, one that would tap into Harley's essence and give riders a reason to choose their bikes beyond just horsepower and features. Beals and Tierlink started by visiting Harley dealerships across the country, talking directly with the owners and the riders. They sought to understand what Harley truly meant to the people who rode them. It became clear that, for Harley enthusiasts, riding was more than just a mode of transportation, it was a lifestyle. Riders weren't just buying a motorcycle, they were buying into a culture, a brotherhood, and a sense of identity. This wasn't just about owning a bike, It was about joining a community where the roar of the engine symbolized freedom and individuality. Armed with this insight, the leadership team shifted their focus away from competing on specs and towards selling a sense of belonging. They started to cultivate the idea that owning a Harley was about being part of a larger family, a tribe of people who shared the same passion for the open road. To foster this sense of community, Harley-Davidson created the Harley Owners Group, HOG, in 1983. It wasn't just a customer loyalty program, it was a way to bring riders together through rallies, events, and rides. HOG quickly became one of the most successful motorcycle clubs in the world, with thousands of chapters and hundreds of thousands of members. Harley-Davidson also began to change how it marketed its bikes. One of their iconic ads at the time showed a lone rider cruising down a desert highway with the tagline, "It's not the destination, it's the journey." This message spoke to the deeper reason why people rode Harleys: to feel free, to experience adventure, and to escape the constraints of everyday life. The ads didn't focus on specs or performance statistics, they focused on the emotions that came with riding. This shift in focus began to resonate with Harley's customers. The company's efforts to connect with its core riders paid off, as sales began to stabilize. Riders, old and new, started to see Harley-Davidson not just as a motorcycle brand, but as a symbol of authenticity and freedom. And this community, this tribe of Harley riders, became fiercely loyal. They wore Harley jackets, displayed the brand's logo proudly, and even tattooed it onto their skin. Harley-Davidson had become more than just a company, it was a movement. The transformation wasn't easy. Beals and Tearlink had to cut costs, streamline production, and work tirelessly to improve the quality of their bikes. They even took the unprecedented step of asking the U.S. government for a temporary tariff on imported Japanese motorcycles to give them a chance to get back on their feet. A request that stirred controversy, but ultimately bought Harley time to rebuild. While the Japanese manufacturers focused on their engineering prowess, Harley leaned into the cultural connection that came with their bikes, doubling down on the deep emotional ties that their community felt for the brand. In 1987, as Harley-Davidson celebrated its return to profitability, they made a symbolic gesture. They asked the U.S. government to remove the protective tariffs a year earlier than scheduled. It was a sign that they were ready to compete on their own terms again. But by then, the real secret to their resurgence was already in place. Harley-Davidson had built a tribe, one that was deeply loyal and willing to pay a premium for the experience of owning and riding a Harley. By focusing on their why, the feeling of freedom and camaraderie that came with every ride, Harley-Davidson didn't just survive, they thrived. Even today, the Harley brand is synonymous with the open road, a lifestyle that continues to draw people in. Harley riders still gather at rallies, bond over their shared love for the rumble of the engine, and ride together across long stretches of highway, feeling a part of something much bigger than themselves. The brand's revival taught a powerful lesson. When you know your why and you connect with others through it, you can turn even the toughest challenges into new beginnings. The story of the Golden Gate Bridge, building with a purpose. The Golden Gate Bridge is one of the most iconic structures in the world, but its story is one of immense challenges, both technical and emotional. In the 1920s, San Francisco was a booming city, but it was isolated, with the bay separating it from the neighboring counties. The only way to travel between the city and Marin County was by ferry, which could be slow and unreliable, especially in the foggy weather. Business leaders and city planners saw the potential in a bridge that could connect San Francisco directly to the north, but many thought it was impossible. Engineers doubted it could be done, and the city's leaders balked at the enormous cost. The project faced intense opposition. Local ferry companies feared the bridge would destroy their business. Military officials worried that a bridge across the bay would be a target for enemies in wartime. Environmentalists argued that the bridge would ruin the natural beauty of the Golden Gate Strait. And then there were the technical challenges. The strait was known for its strong tides, swirling currents, and dense fog. The depth of the water and the width of the span made the idea of building a bridge seem like a fantasy. But Joseph Strauss, a bold and determined engineer, believed in a different future. He wasn't interested in just building any bridge. He wanted to create a symbol of human achievement, something that would stand as a testament to what people could accomplish together. He saw the bridge as a way to unite communities, to connect people, and to make life better for the city and its surrounding areas. His why was about more than steel and concrete. It was about bringing people together and opening up opportunities for growth. Strauss's initial design for the bridge was clunky and practical, but as he gathered a team of visionary architects and engineers, the plans evolved into something far more ambitious. The final design called for a long, elegant suspension bridge that would span 4,200 feet, the longest in the world at the time. But to make it a reality, Strauss needed to rally public support. He embarked on a relentless campaign, holding public meetings, speaking to local newspapers, and personally meeting with critics to win them over. He framed the bridge not just as an engineering project, but as a symbol of the city's progress, a chance to put San Francisco on the map as a modern metropolis. The Great Depression struck just as the project was gaining momentum, throwing everything into uncertainty. Money was tight, and banks were hesitant to fund such a risky endeavor. Yet Strauss and his supporters managed to convince the city to issue bonds to finance the bridge, even during such tough economic times. The people of San Francisco voted to take on the debt, believing in the promise of a brighter future that the bridge represented. It wasn't just about the structure itself, it was about hope, about building something that would lift the city out of the gloom of the Depression. When construction finally began in 1933, the challenges were even more daunting than expected. Workers faced brutal conditions, freezing winds, thick fog that obscured visibility, and dangerous heights. At times, the winds were so fierce that they threatened to blow workers right off the bridge. Yet, the men who built the Golden Gate Bridge were driven by a sense of purpose. They knew they were part of something bigger than themselves, and their efforts would leave a lasting mark on history. To ensure the safety of his workers, Strauss insisted on using the latest safety measures like hard hats and safety nets. Despite these precautions, there were still accidents, and some workers lost their lives. Yet the net saved many others, becoming known as the Halfway to Hell Club for the men who fell into it and lived to tell the tale. This sense of camaraderie and shared purpose kept morale high, even on the hardest days. When the bridge opened in 1937, it was a triumph of engineering, but more than that, it was a triumph of vision and purpose. The Golden Gate Bridge didn't just connect San Francisco to Marin County, it connected the city to its own future. The bridge became a symbol of resilience and determination, a reminder that great things are possible when people come together with a shared sense of purpose. The sight of its towers rising through the fog became a beacon of hope for a city that had dared to dream big. The lesson from the Golden Gate Bridge is clear. When a vision is strong enough, and when it connects deeply with the people involved, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. It's not just about having the right tools or the right plans, it's about knowing why you're building in the first place. The story of Apple, a different way to think. In the late 1990s, Apple Inc. was far from the tech giant we know today. The company was struggling, facing stiff competition from Microsoft and a slew of PC manufacturers that had flooded the market. Apple's market share had dwindled to a mere 3%, and the company's stock price had plummeted. To many, it seemed that Apple's days were numbered, and the industry was bracing for the company's demise. The board of directors decided to bring back Steve Jobs, the company's original co-founder, in a desperate bid to save it. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was directionless, producing an overwhelming array of products that lacked focus and identity. One of the first things Jobs did was slash the product line, cutting away the confusion to focus on a few key items. But his vision for Apple went far beyond simplifying their offerings. Jobs knew that Apple had the potential to change the world, but only if it rediscovered its core purpose, its why. For Steve Jobs, the why was clear. Apple existed to challenge the status quo, to think differently, and to empower people through technology. He believed that computers were not just for engineers or businesses, they were for everyone. And Apple's mission wasn't merely to sell hardware, but to create tools that could inspire creativity, self-expression, and innovation. It wasn't about making the fastest processor or having the best graphics. It was about making products that were intuitive, beautiful, and human-centered. Jobs famously articulated this in Apple's Think Different campaign, a series of ads that featured images of visionary leaders like Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, and Amelia Earhart. The campaign didn't mention Apple products at all. Instead, it celebrated those who think differently and made a difference in the world. The message was simple. Apple wasn't just a tech company, It was a brand for the misfits, the dreamers, and those who believed in changing the world. This campaign was a direct appeal to the emotional side of people's minds. It spoke to their desire to be a part of something bigger, to embrace creativity and innovation. One of the most significant turning points came with the launch of the iMac in 1998. At the time, computers were often boxy, beige, and unattractive, designed with function in mind but not form. Jobs, alongside Apple's chief designer Jony Ive, wanted to create a computer that people would love to look at, not just use. The iMac G3 came in a range of vibrant colors, with a translucent, candy-colored case that showcased its inner workings. It wasn't just a computer, it was a statement. The iMac was an instant hit, not just because it worked well but because it stood for something different. It was a symbol of rebellion against the drabness of the tech world, a way for users to express their individuality. For the first time in years, people were excited about computers, and Apple began to regain its momentum. Jobs knew that by tapping into the emotions of their audience, by offering them not just a product but a way to express themselves, Apple could stand out in a crowded market. The next decade saw Apple take this approach even further, releasing products that weren't just innovative but that had a clear why behind them. The iPod was not just a music player, it was a way to put 1,000 songs in your pocket and take your music with you wherever you went. The iPhone wasn't just a phone, it was a revolutionary device that put the internet, a camera, and music all in one place, in a device that fit in your hand. The iPad, the MacBook Air, and countless other products followed this same philosophy. Jobs' unwavering focus on Apple's purpose, its why, transformed it from a struggling computer manufacturer into one of the most valuable companies in the world. But more importantly, it built a cult-like loyalty among Apple users. People didn't just buy Apple products because they were better, they bought them because of what they represented. They wanted to be a part of the Apple story, to join the movement that believed in challenging the status quo. Jobs' focus on the why was so powerful that even after his death, it continued to guide Apple's strategy. Even today, fans line up for hours, sometimes days, just to get their hands on the latest iPhone, not necessarily because of the specs, but because of the connection they feel with the brand. Apple became more than a company. It became a symbol of creativity, innovation, and daring to think differently. Southwest Airlines, a different way to fly. Southwest Airlines is another classic example of a company that knew its why and built its success around it. In the 1970s, air travel was considered a luxury, something reserved for business people or those with deep pockets. The major airlines were focused on providing premium services, fancy meals, comfortable lounges, and first-class cabins. But Herb Kelleher, the co-founder of Southwest Airlines, had a radically different vision. Kelleher believed that air travel should be for everyone, not just the wealthy or the corporate traveler. He saw an opportunity to create an airline that offered affordable, reliable service, connecting people in a way that traditional carriers couldn't. His why was about democratizing the skies, making it possible for everyday people to visit their loved ones, explore new places, or simply get to their destinations without breaking the bank. Kelleher's vision was simple but powerful: we are the low-fare airline. But achieving this vision required turning the traditional airline model on its head. Instead of offering frills, Southwest focused on what really mattered to their customers: getting from point A to point B safely, on time, and for a reasonable price. This meant no assigned seats, no meals, and no first-class section, just low fares and friendly service. While other airlines tried to be all things to all people, Southwest doubled down on its core purpose. Southwest's employees embraced this why with enthusiasm. From the pilots to the baggage handlers, everyone understood that their job was to make flying affordable and enjoyable. They became known for their friendly, sometimes downright quirky service. Flight attendants would crack jokes during safety announcements, pilots would engage with passengers during boarding, and ground crew members would cheerfully wave planes in with a sense of fun. This approach wasn't just a gimmick, it was a way to make passengers feel like they were part of the Southwest family, not just another ticket holder. To keep costs low, Southwest operated with a unique strategy. Instead of using a traditional hub-and-spoke model like other airlines, Southwest used a point-to-point model, focusing on direct routes between smaller cities. This allowed them to avoid the congestion of major hubs, leading to faster turnaround times. Their quick 10-minute turnarounds became legendary in the industry. allowing them to keep their planes in the air more often and reduce costs. This efficiency was passed directly to the passengers in the form of lower fares. Kelleher's focus on Southwest's why made it a runaway success, even during times of crisis. When fuel prices soared in the 2000s, many airlines faced bankruptcy, but Southwest had hedged its fuel costs, a move that aligned with its commitment to keeping fares low. While other airlines were raising prices, Southwest continued to offer affordable flights, further solidifying its reputation among customers as the airline that cared about their wallets. Even during the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, which devastated the airline industry, Southwest managed to keep all of its employees without layoffs, a move that deeply resonated with both staff and passengers. Kelleher believed that taking care of his people was a critical part of Southwest's success. If employees felt valued, they would, in turn, take care of the customers. And that's exactly what happened. Southwest's employees became known for going above and beyond, not because they were required to, but because they believed in the company's purpose. Over the years, Southwest's why attracted a loyal following. People chose Southwest not just because of the price, but because of the experience, the sense of being treated as part of a larger community. They felt that Southwest was looking out for them, even when times were tough. While other airlines focused on increasing profit margins by adding fees for bags and shrinking seat sizes, Southwest stuck to its principles, offering free checked bags and maintaining a straightforward pricing policy. This deep connection between Southwest and its customers has allowed the airline to thrive where others have faltered. By sticking to its why, making air travel accessible and fun for everyone, Southwest Airlines built a brand that people could trust. It wasn't just about flying, it was about flying with heart. Martin Luther King Jr., a dream that resonated. In the 1960s, America was a deeply divided country. The civil rights movement was in full swing, but racism, segregation, and inequality were still rampant, especially in the South. African Americans faced daily discrimination in schools, at work, and even in basic public facilities. The fight for equal rights was a long uphill battle, and the movement needed a voice that could rally people around a shared dream. That voice belonged to Martin Luther King Jr., a young preacher from Atlanta who believed that change was possible, not just through political action, but through the power of a deeply resonant why. King's vision went far beyond legislative changes or court victories. He believed in a vision of equality and harmony that was rooted in a shared humanity. He understood that people wouldn't fight for civil rights just because it was the logical or just thing to do. They needed a vision that was inspiring, that called to their hearts. For King, the why was the dream of a world where people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And it was a dream he believed could unite a divided nation. One of the most iconic moments in King's life, and in American history, was the March on Washington in 1963. On that day, over 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial, many of whom had traveled for days from the Deep South, braving the dangers of segregationist violence. The crowd was a mix of races and backgrounds, white and black, rich and poor, all drawn by a common hope for a better future. People came because they believed that something significant was happening, that they were part of a movement much larger than themselves. When King took the stage that day, he didn't start with policy proposals or legal arguments. Instead, he spoke from the heart, delivering what would become one of the most famous speeches in history. "I have a dream," he began, and the crowd fell silent. King painted a vivid picture of a future where his children would not be judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. He spoke of a day when the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. It was a vision that transcended the details of political struggles and legal battles, touching on a fundamental human aspiration, the desire for equality and justice. But what made King's speech so powerful wasn't just the words, it was the way it made people feel. He tapped into the deep frustrations and longings of those gathered, giving voice to the pain of generations who had been denied their basic rights. At the same time, he offered hope and a sense of possibility, a belief that change could come if enough people believed in the dream. King's words were more than rhetoric. They were a call to action that came from a place of deep conviction. What's fascinating is that King never actually planned to use the "I have a dream" section that day. The speech had been prepared carefully, focusing more on the economic and social issues facing African Americans. But as King spoke, the gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, standing behind him, shouted, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." King paused, set aside his notes, and began to speak from the heart. It was a spontaneous, unscripted moment that became the defining feature of his message. King's dream wasn't just about civil rights, it was about imagining a future that was radically different from the present. He offered people a chance to envision a world where equality was possible, where love and respect could replace hatred and division. This vision gave people hope, even when the path forward seemed impossible. It wasn't just Black Americans who were inspired. Many white Americans also found themselves moved by King's words. They too wanted to be part of a nation that lived up to its ideals. This sense of purpose and unity made King's movement incredibly powerful. While other leaders focused on policy changes, King focused on inspiring people to believe in a vision of a better future. He understood that true change wouldn't come from the top down, but from a collective desire to create a society that was fairer and more just. King's approach drew millions into the movement, even those who might have otherwise remained on the sidelines. Of course, King's path wasn't easy. He faced immense opposition from those who wanted to maintain the status quo, including harassment from the FBI, violent threats, and even attacks on his home. Many marches and protests were met with brutal resistance from police and segregationists. But despite the challenges, King never wavered in his belief that non-violence and love could triumph over hatred. Even when the road seemed darkest, he held on to the belief that his why could bring people together. One of the lesser-known stories of the civil rights movement is how King's dream touched even those outside the United States. After the March on Washington, King received letters from supporters all over the world, from children in India to factory workers in Eastern Europe. His message resonated beyond American borders because it spoke to a universal desire for dignity and freedom. People saw in King's dream a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. When King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, he used the occasion to remind the world that the fight for equality wasn't just an American issue, it was a global struggle for human dignity. He donated the entire prize money, over $50,000, to the civil rights movement, saying that the struggle was far from over and that the money was needed to continue the work. King's humility and commitment to his cause made him a symbol of moral leadership, not just in America but around the world. Even after King's assassination in 1968, his dream lived on. His vision of equality and justice continued to inspire new generations of activists and leaders, from the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa to the fight for LGBTQ rights in America. King's dream, once seen as an impossible ideal, gradually became a reality as laws changed and hearts and minds began to shift. But the dream also remained unfinished, a reminder that each generation must take up the mantle and continue the work of building a more just world. The story of Martin Luther King Jr. teaches us that real leadership is not about telling people what to do, it's about inspiring them to believe in a vision that they want to make real. King's dream gave people a reason to keep marching, even when the odds were against them. It connected them to a sense of purpose that went beyond their individual struggles and made them feel like they were part of something historic. King's why was the dream of a better world, and that dream had the power to change hearts, minds, and ultimately a nation. Conclusion: finding your why. As we've explored the powerful stories and ideas within Start With Why, it's clear that understanding and articulating your why is crucial for inspiring yourself and those around you. It's not just about what you do or how you do it, it's about the core beliefs that drive you and your actions. Whether you're leading a team, running a business, or simply navigating your personal life, grounding yourself in your why can create a profound impact. Here are some actionable steps you can take to discover and embody your own why. Reflect on your experiences. Take some time to think about the moments in your life that brought you the most joy or fulfillment. What common threads do you see? Was there a particular challenge you overcame that ignited a passion within you? Write down these experiences and look for patterns that reveal your core beliefs. Identify your values. Make a list of the values that are most important to you. These could include honesty, creativity, family, service, or innovation. Rank them in order of importance, and choose the top 3 to 5 values that resonate most deeply. These values will help shape your why. Ask the right questions. Engage in self-inquiry by asking yourself questions like, what do I believe in? Why do I do what I do? How do I want to make a difference in the world? What legacy do I want to leave behind? These questions can help clarify your purpose and guide your actions. Create a personal mission statement. Based on your reflections and values, craft a personal mission statement that encapsulates your why. It should be a simple, clear sentence that reflects your core beliefs and what drives you. For example, I strive to empower others to reach their full potential through education and mentorship. Share your why. Communicate your mission statement and your why with those around you. Whether it's your team at work, your family, or friends, sharing your purpose can inspire others and create a sense of community. Encourage them to explore their own why as well. Align your actions with your why as you move forward. Make a conscious effort to align your daily actions and decisions with your why. This might mean saying no to opportunities that don't resonate with your purpose, or seeking out projects that excite you and align with your values. Regularly check in with yourself to ensure you're staying true to your mission. Inspire others. Look for opportunities to inspire those around you by sharing stories that illustrate your why. Whether it's through conversations, presentations, or social media, showcasing how your beliefs guide your actions can motivate others to discover their own purpose. Revisit and revise. Remember that discovering your why is a journey, not a destination. As you grow and evolve, your understanding of your why may change. Make it a habit to revisit your mission statement regularly and revise it as needed to reflect your current beliefs and goals. By taking these steps, you can unlock the potential to inspire yourself and others, leading with purpose and passion. Your why is the foundation of your journey. Embrace it, share it, and watch how it transforms not only your life but the lives of those around you. Start today, and you'll be well on your way to making a meaningful impact in everything you do.